So hi everybody. Welcome to Wild One Greater Cleveland, our April chapter meeting. So happy April. I have up on the screen, kind of we always intro the same way. We talk about our mission and then we have, maybe a quick discussion about what might be blooming in your yard. So the mission here at Wild Ones is to promote native landscapes through education, advocacy, and collaborative action. This photo on the screen right now of yellow trout lily was actually taken yesterday. I had to think of, no, Sunday. See, I still mess it up. I had to think of what day it was. It was taken Sunday on one of our spring ephemeral hikes in Medina County Parks District. This was from one of our volunteers. So I wanted to throw that in there so everybody can take a look. But does anybody have any spring ephemerals in their yard that they want to share and talk about? I know I have a few very small Virginia bluebells, and they have flower buds on them as of the other day, so I've been waiting. It seems like, ooh, in the chat we have violets. Yes, there's lots of those. Very exciting. Bloodroot. Susie, you have some in your yard. That's very exciting. Shelley's hepatica is blooming. That's very cool. Anything else that anybody? Gail, do you have what's going on at your house?
Well, because I have the greenhouses, I've got bluebells blooming and columbine and wild phlox. Too many things to mention.
That's good. We have May apples, right? I saw them this weekend. They were still closed. They hadn't opened yet. Are yours open, Ray? Or are they closed? I don't know if we have varying degrees in temperature from the west side to the east.
Well, I get some lake effect cooling here. I'm close enough to the lake that it slows things down. Even 10 miles away in Oberlin, things are a little bit further along. You can see it this time of year, especially.
Oh, Jane says ragwort is almost ready. Skunk cabbage leafing out. Yes, so I saw a lot of skunk cabbage this past weekend at a family member's house, and I love it in all stages. Theirs was leafing out, but you could still see kind of the dead flower, I guess, the spent flower. So I was taking, down on the ground, taking some pictures of kind of what that looked like in that stage. So that was fun. And I found like a huge one, not this big, but it was bigger than the rest. All right, that's awesome. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. Just a quick agenda. We have Gail here. She's going to be our educational speaker tonight. She's going to talk about spring ephemerals and woodland plants. Very apropos for our time of the year right now. We're going to give some chapter updates and some past and upcoming events and activities. And then we have Antonio, he's our community garden chair. He's going to talk about a volunteer planting day that we're going to have and talk about his plans for that with Friends of Hudson Parks. So I will introduce Gail. She's the owner of Natives in Harmony. So her presentation, found throughout the eastern United States and Canada, spring ephemerals thrive on the floor of rich, undisturbed woodlands. As their name suggests, spring ephemeral wildflowers bloom for a short time each spring. As understory forest dwellers, they only have a short window of suitable conditions for above ground growth between frozen ground in the winter and full shade in the summer canopy. So her presentation is going to tell us all about these wonderful spring ephemerals. So Gail, if you want to, I'll stop sharing screen. and you can share and take it away.
Okay. See if I can figure out everything here. There. Are we good?
Yes, that looks great.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if I was seeing the same thing you're seeing.
Yep.
All righty. So, in case you don't know what a spring ephemeral is, it means short-lived or lasting for a brief time. They appear when the weather starts to warm, and then they disappear when summer gets here. And of course, they don't die. They just go dormant very quickly. A lot of times people come to the nursery and they'll buy spring ephemerals. They take them home, they plant them, and then a month later, they're coming to me and they're going, "My plant died. Can you replace it?" And I have to try to explain that it didn't really die. It just went to sleep for a while. So spring ephemerals bide their time underground. Their roots are tubers for most of the year, and then they rush to photosynthesize, flower, and produce seeds when the light is available. And they can survive crappy stuff like what we have today. It's almost like they have antifreeze in their veins. And I'm always so surprised at how well they deal with this kind of weather. But they also rely on symbiotic relationships with insects, and that helps to spread their seeds. So usually late February or early March, we start seeing little glimpses of spring ephemerals. Certainly not that Trillium grandiflorum you see on the top there. We do start seeing the hepatica pretty early. But before the hepatica, well, there's skunk cabbage. And one thing to remember about spring ephemerals is when you get a large amount of them in a woodland, it can just be magical. And here you see a large patch of foam flower. And it just almost doesn't look real. It looks like something out of a fairy tale. Well, something that's not out of a fairy tale is skunk cabbage. And they're really interesting. I mean, it takes a tough plant to be able to deal with the weather first thing in the spring. And they can raise the temperature 5 degrees, and they actually can melt nearby snow. But, well, they want to lure flies in to pollinate, and so they smell like rotten meat. They're not exactly the kind of plant that you would want to have right up next to your house, I'm sure. I have a son in Michigan who has skunk cabbage in his backyard, and he's constantly begging me to come and dig it out because he's not a real fan. But I don't want Michigan skunk cabbage, so I tell him no every year. Anyway, while the flowers are interesting enough, the leaves, I think the leaves are kind of cool. And so when the flowers are gone, you end up with the leaves, and a large patch of it, I think, is kind of attractive. And it's always nice to see that one thing that's blooming, that's doing something when you feel like all hope is lost and spring is never going to get here. One of the things that I really love to see early in the spring is the sharp-lobed hepatica. I have some in my woods back here behind the house, and while it's often white, sometimes we do have a few plants that are beautiful colors, and some examples of some of the wonderful colors that you can get from sharp-lobed hepatica. Absolutely stunning. The colors are just gorgeous. And when you're used to white, man, when you see that beautiful violet or the blue, it just kind of blows you away. But this is a plant that often is going to bloom before the leaves are noticeable. Sometimes the leaves will come in after the flowers, and you can see in the lower right-hand picture that you've got flowers, but leaves, and then in the upper, you've got the leaves and the flowers. And of course, you already saw some white trout or some yellow trout lily, and white and yellow are both common here in Ohio. It doesn't seem, I don't think I've ever seen yellow and white in the same woodlands. So they kind of seem to be a little separated, but they're still really cool plants. I will tell you, if you ever want to dig up a trout lily, dig up one with one leaf. Do not try to dig up the two leafers. Those are the ones that are blooming. Because when those bloom, by the time they get big enough to bloom, they may have sent that bulb 3 feet down in the ground. And if you try to dig them up, you're essentially killing the plants. They are black walnut tolerant though. So if you want something to put under a black walnut tree, trout lily is a good choice. And of course, one of the things you commonly see when you find trout lily is large colonies. And it takes about 8 years, I'm told. And I'm not, I have it growing back in my woods, so I'm not really timing how long it takes from a seed hitting the ground until it is blooming. But I'm told it's 8 years from the seed drops until you have a mature plant that's blooming. And these are interesting plants in that the trout lilies will send a little slender runner down deep into the ground in the winter, and they send them down toward the warmth in the soil. So by the time they're big enough to bloom, as I said, you may have that bulb 3 feet down in the ground. And if you sever it by trying to dig up the plant, then you've just basically killed it. Dutchman breeches and squirrel corn. Those are two of my favorites. Now, my mom, when she was a kid, called squirrel corn Dutch girls' breeches. So Dutchman's breeches were the yellow ones, and Dutch girls' breeches or squirrel corn were the pink ones. And of course, they're related to bleeding hearts, and you can see the similarity with the squirrel corn. On the pictures of the tubers, the reddish ones are the Dutchman's breeches, and then the yellow ones are the squirrel corn. So it makes it easy to see how squirrel corn gets its name. It does kind of resemble a little corn. I don't know if squirrels really eat it, but that's what they've named it. And then, of course, you know, seeing a large patch of Dutchman's breeches out in the woods is absolutely stunning too. And in this image, you can see a few trout lilies in the center. Myself, I love bluebells, and Virginia bluebells are absolutely one of my favorite spring bloomers. And they're pretty popular with bumblebees too. Bumblebees are one of the first bees that's out foraging early in the spring. And so it's plants like this that help support those bumbles. And we need all the bluebells we can get because we want to keep our bumblebees happy, especially if you're growing tomatoes in a garden, because bumblebees are the best pollinators for your tomatoes. So find things to plant around your house to make those bumblebees happy. And you can't deny how gorgeous this image is with the bluebells in a large expanse. Generally, when I found them out in the wild, they're usually kind of like in a river bottom kind of situation where it's kind of moist and yet very well drained when it's not flooded. I love spring beauties. And I don't, as a matter of fact, I don't think I know anybody who doesn't love spring beauties. Spring beauties are a wonderful plant. They're completely edible too, by the way. Native Americans harvested the little tubers. Our early settlers called them fairy spuds. And if you notice in this picture, spring beauties have pink pollen, which makes it really not, I mean, they're just really cute. Normally you don't see pink pollen. And there's a little native bee that's a specialist on spring beauties. And we've got a picture of it here. Check out its cute little pink powder puffs. This is an adorable little bee, and they nest in the ground next to the spring beauties. So this is a bee that's a specialist. It's only out when the spring beauty is in bloom. When the spring beauty is out of bloom, the bee is gone. So if you have a patch of spring beauties, watch for the bee when the spring beauties are in bloom and look for those little pink powder puffs on his leg. May apples, another really wonderful woodland plant. Now they have a blooming period that's usually mid to late spring. You do not want to eat the fruit from a May apple unless you're absolutely sure that it's ripe. It's edible, but it's got to be completely ripe or it's poisonous. So this is one that's kind of, well, do I try it or do I not? For me, I think I'm just going to abstain. But they can make a really nice ground cover. And here's an image that shows you a planting under a tree with some ferns, and we've got some woodland phlox, I think, in the background there. You know, we're hearing a lot about soft landings under trees, and This is one of those plants that helps give you that soft landing. Jacob's ladder, I think, is probably one of my favorites. I find it in the woods back behind my house quite a bit. There's a lot of it back there. And the color is wonderful. The foliage is what gives it its name, because the leaves are kind of opposite, like Jacob's ladder. And it's just a nice plant. It's hard to catch the seed for this one. If you're trying to get it and you want to collect the seed and you want to grow it, I have a hard time collecting the seed from this, because usually by the time I get out there, it's already dried up and gone. Rue anemone is one of my favorite. Okay. What can I say? They're all my favorites. I keep saying that. I catch myself doing that all the time. I love these plants. They're so versatile. They're so different from each other. It's just so exciting to see them when they're in bloom. I love rue anemone. Very delicate, very dainty, blows in the wind very gently. It's a pretty short plant, so it's not going to overtake your garden and be 6 foot tall, but it's absolutely gorgeous and it's so delicate looking. And then there's toadshade, trillium, sessile trillium also. It's another one that smells like rotting meat. So, you have to kind of love the flower and deal with the smell. But it has a nice long bloom period. And it's a really nifty little plant for a low growing woodland plant. Also black walnut tolerant. And a patch of them can be very attractive. And here you see it mixed in with cutleaf toothwort. And it's just, I don't know. I love the mottled leaves. I think they're really pretty. And they're so different because no two plants are identical as far as the mottling of the leaves and the way that the plant is growing. And of course, you get where the name trillium comes from. You've got 3 leaves, 3 sepals, and 3 petals on the flower. Broadleaf toothwort is one that I have not seen in a lot of different places around Ohio. Of course, I haven't been everywhere. It's one that I grow that I think is really pretty. And while it looks like it has 3 leaves, it's actually leaflets, and there's 2, which is cardamom diphylla, meaning 2. So you've got on either side of those flowers, you have 1 leaf, and on the other leaf, and then it's leaflets that are attached. All of the toothworts are edible. I'm a huge fan of ethnobotany, and it's always interests me to know which plants in the landscape I can munch on. And this is one that tastes very peppery. If you've ever tasted a nasturtium, the flavor for the toothworts is very similar to nasturtium. Bloodroot, when I was a kid, this was one of my favorites because I was enamored with Native American culture and history. And I always thought, wow, it'd be so cool to just be able to paint my face with the blood from the bloodroot. This is a wonderful plant. They're very pretty. Jefferson twinleaf is related or has a flower similar to bloodroot. They're both very pretty plants. And of course, this is another black walnut tolerant plant. They sure are pretty in a patch. I mean, you just can't deny the beauty of this plant. And the flowers are so big for a woodland little spring ephemeral. And then here's Jefferson twinleaf. Of course, it got its name because Thomas Jefferson had it planted at Monticello. I kind of think that twinleaf leaves look like angel wings. At least to me, I always felt like it was angel wings attached to a plant. If you kind of look at them, they do resemble angel wings. But this is another one that's very slow to propagate, can take 5 to 8 years to get it to bloom from seed. Interestingly enough, most of these woodland plants, when you're trying to grow them from seed, they have to go through, well, basically the equivalent of an Ohio summer and winter. So you need at least 90 days of warm, moist stratification, and then 90 days of cold, moist stratification on most of these plants. And twinleaf generally will grow like this. You have like clumps of it where you'll see them in the woods, and they're not They're not a real spread out patch, but they'll just be in clumps where the plant started. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't love Trillium grandiflorum, great white trillium. It's a beautiful plant. I think it's interesting that the older the flowers get, they change color. So they start out as white, and then as the flowers mature and get older, they start to turn pink. And here's a great example of those petals turning pink with age. So you have a white flower planted, and eventually it's going to turn pink before it totally goes away. Kind of the opposite, I guess, of the bluebells being pink when they're in bud and then blue when they're in bloom. Dwarf larkspur is one that if you haven't encountered it in a woods, you've really been missing something. There's a few woodlots that I've been in Marion County where there's tons of this dwarf larkspur. And to just see this like in the bottom of this woodlot, kind of in the low-lying areas, it's so gorgeous. And you've just got this really rich blue-purple color. It's a wonderful plant. I will say this plant is kind of delicate. It breaks very easily. So if you're going to plant it in a garden, put it someplace where people aren't going to be brushing up against it, knocking into it. Your pets aren't going to run over it, because they'll completely destroy it, and then you won't get to watch it bloom. Like I said, gorgeous, right? Jack in the pulpits. Yeah, I don't know for sure if they're really considered an ephemeral, but they're still a pretty cool plant. And I think it's interesting that you get some that have this really rich colored striping, while then you also have some that are very pale and you can barely see the stripes in them. But it's a plant that will bloom for a long time. And that pulpit is just so interesting with the leaves. And of course, you may or may not have ever encountered its relative, the green dragon. That's another really cool plant to have in the woods, but to try to keep this presentation short, I didn't add it in. And of course, here's your Jack in the pulpit with the resulting seed head. You know, a lot of these plants have this relationship with insects, where insects or other creatures are going to take the seeds and drag them off. Trillium has an elaiosome on the seed that ants like, so they'll collect the seeds and then they'll eat off this little elaiosome, and then they disperse the seeds. And Jack in the pulpit is another one of those that I think it's box turtles that will eat the seeds of this plant. And so they help disperse it. Now, if you're thinking about using woodland species in your garden, I think it's a great idea, and it can help with that soft landings thing. But you can also use them for color. You can use them for ground cover. And here's an image that has a lot of woodland phlox underneath of a tree with just a little path going through it. And I think it looks very romantic. Woodland phlox, by the way, has a great smell. I love to keep a bunch of it in the greenhouse next to my potting building, so that when it's blooming, I can sit in there and work and smell it, because it's so sweet. Just an absolutely amazing, beautiful, sweet smell. And it has a pretty long bloom period, being for about a month. So once you get this started, you can have that blue and that wonderful fragrance for a little while. And of course, it's really pretty. And the blue phlox is not always just blue. It may be called blue phlox, but sometimes it's more on the lavender side. And I even pop up as almost white here. You can see the May-apples in this image, and the May-apples are blooming at the same time as the phlox. Wild geranium is one that here at the nursery, we have a devil of a time keeping it in stock. Seems like a lot of people understand what a great plant this is. It has also about a 1-month blooming period, absolutely beautiful flowers. And the nice thing about wild geranium is it can take sun as well as shade. So it's a really versatile plant to put just about any place where you want a pop of color. Here in Ohio, you find wild geranium out in the prairies, but you also find it in the woods. And it's another great plant that's black walnut tolerant. I love the foliage on this plant too. And this is another one that can be really hard to collect the seed from, because I get busy and then the seed is ripe and it spreads out and I miss it a lot of times. So it's one that I have a hard time getting enough seed to keep me going as far as the nursery goes. The little seed capsules will split open and then they curl back. And once you walk out there to collect seed and you see those little seed capsules curled back, you know you missed your chance. Wild stonecrop is one that I for a long time didn't realize that we had a native stonecrop. And this is the one that you're going to find in areas that are partly shaded. You can find it in full sun. And a lot of our cultivars of stonecrop have been developed out of this one, Sedum tornatum. This has a long blooming period too, for about a month. I'm never down low enough to really smell the flowers, but they're supposed to be slightly fragrant. It's just a really wonderful little plant. And one of the things that I've noticed about this is it stays nice all winter long. It doesn't really matter how cold it's gotten. This little plant is going strong. Even when it's 0 degrees outside, this plant doesn't seem to suffer at all. So I think we probably are not using this to the best advantage, but maybe we can start using it a little bit more. And I know it's really great as a drought tolerant plant, and it's also black walnut tolerant. Wild ginger here at the nursery, we have it blooming here already. And the ones that I have had in the greenhouse over the winter, they've bloomed. And it's a cool plant. Again, you know, the flower, you don't usually notice it because it's underneath the leaves, but it's a really cool plant. And this is a great ground cover. Just a wonderful plant. Native Americans used it some for seasoning, and our early settlers used it as a replacement for ginger, which is why we know it as wild ginger today. And here's a great example of how nicely this plant will work as a ground cover. Personally, I really like alum root. There's a couple of species that are native in Ohio. Heuchera americana is smooth and it blooms earlier in the season. And then there's also the hairy alum root, which blooms a little bit later. The flowers may not be really much when it comes to, you know, just looking for color in your garden, but the foliage is wonderful and it's a great ground cover if you just think of it as far as foliage. And it's deer tolerant, so you don't have to worry about the deer coming and eat all up. And the pollinators do really seem to love these tiny little flowers. They may not do much for you as far as the beauty of them, but they do for the pollinators. I think one of my favorites, though, is foam flower. Blooms early to mid-spring. It just, when you see a large sweep of this, it's really beautiful. And it has such an interesting little fringy looking flower. The foliage is nice too. And after the flower's done blooming, the foliage will persist as a ground cover. And here's an example of that in a little bit larger patch, so that you can kind of get the feeling for how this looks. One of the plants that I'm increasingly getting attached to is dwarf crested iris. You can't put this in a site that's really wet. It loves to be dry, but if you've got a good place that's dry, maybe even a rock garden, this plant is wonderful. And boy, when you have a large patch of it in bloom, it may not be what I would think of as a ground cover. Some people like to use it as such, but to me, it doesn't grow close enough. But when it's in bloom, you can't deny how pretty it is. And it's so short, and it's never going to get tall and take over, you know, like overpower anything. And because the rhizomes are pretty close to the top of the ground, it's easy to dig up and move around and put in different places where you might want a little pop of color. And this guy also can take a lot of sun. So it's one of those really versatile plants that you can use in the sun or in the shade. Blue cohosh is one of those plants that here at the nursery, I'm still struggling to figure out just exactly how to grow it to my best advantage. I struggle with it, but it's a really cool plant. And a lot of people love it for the blue berries that you see later in the season. The plants might start to look a little bit tattered and dried up, but those berries are really interesting. I love the blue color. And of course, it's a medicinal herb. So some people are leaning more and more towards growing medicinals in their yards. And if you want to really make a hummingbird happy, grow some wild columbine. It's one of the most cheerful spring blooming flowers. Man, the color is amazing. And a lot of our cultivars that we have here that you can buy in the regular garden centers are crosses between the columbine, our native eastern columbine, or the Rocky Mountain columbine, which is blue, or the European columbine. So they're crossing them all together and coming up with all these different combinations and colors. But for me, I'll just take the straight native Ohio columbine. It's pretty in a patch. It's not as great, like huge mass of flowers. They're so ethereal, but it's so much fun to watch the hummingbirds come in and just enjoy the heck out of these flowers. Black cohosh is one that you're going to see blooming much later in the season. It's June or early July, and it sends the foliage way up, or the flowers way up above the foliage. I have some behind a park bench here at the nursery. And it's always almost like the flowers are reaching over the park bench to try to grab you. But it has such a different look that it's really nice to use in the back of a border. And you'll see it a lot of times when you go on hikes, like along some of the trails along the Kokosing River in Knox County, you'll see this plant growing along the trails. Common blue violet. I love the color of violets. And just for a nice short ground cover, you can't beat a violet. You really can't. And you can eat the flowers. So what's not to love, right? They're also a host plant for fritillaries. So if you've got violets, and it doesn't matter which violet it is, you can eat the flowers. They're hosts for these little butterflies. Why not plant them? They make a great green ground cover. And I think the common blue violet, obviously it's shorter and it makes a better ground cover than, say, cream violet, because cream violet often gets tall and it doesn't make as great of a ground cover. I think one of the most common complaints I hear about common blue violet is the fact that it jumps out into the yard. Okay, well, it doesn't stay put. That's true. But is it really a problem if you have it in your yard? And it's also black walnut tolerant. Here's longspur violet. I found this little violet behind my house in the woods on a little slope, and I'm completely enamored with it. Look at the spur on the flower. They're just so cute. It's a very short violet. It's not it's not, how do I say this? It is not state listed in Ohio, but it's fairly uncommon in some places while it's locally common in others. And when I first found it, I had never seen it before, and I was just, wow. So I contacted the governor's mansion because, they have native gardens at the governor's mansion in Bexley, and they didn't have it. So it's now their compliments of Natives in Harmony. But this is the cutest little thing. And there are places here around my home where folks have it growing out in their yards, all over their yard. And it's just amazing. But yet I had gone 50 years of my life looking in woodlands and had never seen this violet until I moved here. And here's cream violet. This is a nice violet. It's a little taller It blooms later than a lot of the other natives, and the flower stems are longer. It doesn't really invade lawns because the stems are so long, and it doesn't like to be mowed off. So this is one that if you really don't want your violet to grow in your lawn, go for cream violet. I'm using it as a ground cover under a pin oak, and I think it's doing a pretty good job. Early meadow rue is one that I've just recently started growing. It's not as tall as, say, tall meadow rue or skunk meadow rue, which are rues that you find out in open prairie areas. This one's a lot shorter, very delicate foliage though, and the flowers are really kind of fringy. So they're really kind of nifty. It's a wonderful little plant and very delicate, and just kind of gives you a little bit of different height and a little different texture. So this is one that you can use to fill in for spots because it comes up later. So when your ephemerals are going dormant, you can have this in there and it'll start covering up that space that was once filled by those things that were blooming earlier in the season. Well, you know, we got to talk a little bit about ferns if we're going to talk about things in the woods. And one of my all-time favorites, of course, is maidenhair. It's such a beautiful plant. And the arrangement of the leaflets, everything about this plant is really wonderful. But don't put it in the sun because it doesn't like sun at all. It can handle a little part shade, but it likes shade, definitely. And of course, you know, if you want to have things that you can munch on too, the ferns, some of the ferns are really nice because you can eat the fiddleheads. And Christmas fern, of course, got its name because it often was still green at Christmas time. I have it in the woodlot back here, and I just love this fern. It's not one of the really tall ferns, but it's still a really nice, attractive ground cover. Lady fern is one of the little bit taller ferns. They can go 3 to 3.5 feet. So it provides good cover for wildlife. And also if you're just looking for a fern that's a little on the bigger side, this is one that's very nice. And of course you can eat the fiddleheads on this too. And it's black walnut tolerant, so there's a lot of things to like about it. Starry campion, this is one of the plants that I don't think a lot of people are familiar with. It's related to royal catchfly, so it's in the silene family. And it's bitter, I'm told. I've never tried to eat it, but deer don't seem to like it. So anything in the silene family, if you have trouble with deer, these are great plants to put in your landscape because the deer won't mess with them. And this one will hybridize with fire pinks or with roundleaf catchfly. Both of them silenes, both of them are red. And so when this hybridizes with the red ones, you get a pink frilly flower like the silene stellata flower. It's very cool. I've had it happen here at the nursery a couple of times because their bloom times overlapped and there was a little genetic hanky-panky going on. But these are wonderful flowers and open during the evening. So if you're doing a moth garden, this is a wonderful plant to put in for a moth garden. And it can take some sun too. So even though it's considered more of a woodland plant, it'll do okay in the sun. I've been experimenting with it. White wood aster is another wonderful plant that you can have in your shady garden. That's just going to give a little pop of brightness in there. Here, planted under a sycamore tree. And when it's in bloom, it really brightens up that shade. But it's a great plant. There are a couple of different species of wood asters that have white flowers. One is white wood aster, and the other one is big leaf aster. And of course, big leaf has a little bigger leaves than the regular white wood aster. But they're both really nice plant, and they really do brighten up a spot. You know, we have to talk about goldenrods a little bit. Goldenrods are really underappreciated. We're growing, oh gosh, I think close to 10 species of goldenrod here at the nursery. And these are my two favorite woodland goldenrods, blue stemmed and zigzag. Blue stemmed is going to stay in a clump. So if you want a goldenrod that's going to behave itself and kind of stay put, the blue stem is the one for you. If you don't mind it spreading a little bit and acting more like a ground cover, then zigzag goldenrod is a great choice. Both of them are black walnut tolerant, so that's helpful too. And blue wood aster, I gotta tell you, I think this is probably one of my favorite asters of all the asters I grow. This thing, when it's in bloom, it's like a fluffy blue cloud. The flowers are small, but they have these beautiful yellow centers. And it almost seems like there's thousands of flowers on one plant. A lot of times, if you go past an area that's wooded and they've been mowing the sides, the roadsides, you know, and you'll see all these little patches blue in September, that's blue wood aster. That little guy is persistent. Even if you mow it off, it's still going to pop back up and try to bloom. And it has a long bloom period, so you can really enjoy that beautiful blue flower for quite a while. And I think this is my last slide. This is Heartleaf Golden Alexander. I am in love with the Golden Alexanders anyway, mostly because they're a host for black swallowtail butterflies, also known as the woodland swallowtail. But the Golden Alexander, the heartleaf, I think is, the foliage is prettier than regular Golden Alexanders. Although most of the time I think the regular Golden Alexander has a prettier flower, but I love the foliage on the heartleaf. It's more full as far as foliage at the base of the plant. And when you're looking for something to fill in a spot, it's really, and these guys will hold on to their seeds for a long time, which I appreciate because I'm not always quick to get out there to collect. And so they can hold on to the seed on the seed head, which adds a little bit more of attractiveness to it, even after it's done blooming. And I guess I'm ready for questions if anybody has any.
Thanks, Gail. Oh my gosh, I now have things to add to my list of things that I want for my yard. I'll kick off questions. So I have one. The goldenrods. Would either of the blue stem or the other one you mentioned do well under a spruce tree?
Whoa, yeah, I don't know
Dry.
about acidic soil. So when you're putting them underneath something that's evergreen, the soil is going to be pretty acidic.
Yeah.
I think if I were going to try one of them, I would try the zigzag over the blue stem.
Blue stem,
Because the
okay.
blue stems to be a little bit more of a diva when it comes to where it likes to be planted.
Okay. All right. I'll try it. Does anybody else have any questions for Gail?
Yeah, this is Ray. You didn't mention wild hyacinth in your spring ephemerals, and it's one that I really like. And
Yeah.
The challenge I have is that you know, for landscaping with it when it's done blooming and the leaves really wilt down and make a kind of a mess of things. And you know, I'd like to use it more, but I'd like to have a companion to go with it that would kind of hide the foliage as it you know, decomposes.
So you're asking me what I would suggest as a companion for it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know, the problem with I love wild hyacinth, and I was trying to keep myself at a minimum of, you know, I didn't want to go too long. I was told I had time constraints. So, but I think wild hyacinth is one of the really cool plants that you have in the spring, but it does like a kind of a moist area. And that gives you a little bit of a challenge when you're looking at something else that you can put in there, you know, to take over that area. I know one of the things that I have here at the nursery where my wild hyacinth is spiderwort. And so when the wild hyacinth goes out of bloom, the spiderwort starts blooming. but then the spiderwort also will die back. So then you still kind of have the same problem.
I have black-eyed Susans mixed with my spiderwort, and they kind of have that nice gradual as the spiderwort's going out, the black
Mhm.
Susan leaves are coming up. But the black Susan leaves might, I don't know if they would prohibit the wild hyacinth.
Yeah, I haven't really played a lot with wild hyacinth as far as what else I can plant in and around it.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like Stanley, you know, whatever that space is that you're planting it in, you really need to have something else there. Because you're either going to have the wilted foliage after it's done blooming,
Mhm.
or you're just going to have a bare spot. So you kind of have to have a succession plan.
Yeah, and because it creates a bulb, it's a it's a little bit different thing. I think you'd have to kind of treat it as if it was a daffodil, because they both have bulbs that are going to persist in the ground even after they go dormant. So you've got to find something that the roots are going to be able to commingle with those bulbs and not have any issues.
Right.
Does anyone else have
Okay.
any? Sorry, Ray.
No, that's good. I like the spiderwort idea.
I was just gonna add, I actually bought wild hyacinth seeds from Prairie Moon Nursery, and I got them shipped. So I'm looking forward to sowing those in the fall. And it's funny you say that because my spiderwort's also with my black-eyed Susans in the front. And what's really funny is you only can really get like in the early morning sun, they're in full bloom. So I always say this, my neighbors must get a kick out of seeing me in the spring and summer, just like out in my yard, like getting really low or up high, taking like hundreds of pictures. And yeah, spiderwort is just every early morning, like those blooms are just so eye-catching. Then they close for the day, come back in the morning. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think each flower, is it only true they only bloom a day? Because I feel like that wasn't the case with my spiderwort. I feel like they opened and closed, like the same flower.
Well, as far as I know, it is only a day, but you have that large cluster of flowers with the spiderwort. And so
Mhm.
you've got multiple flowers coming on constantly, and it'll be forming seed and dropping seed while it's still blooming.
Yeah. Hopefully it comes back stronger this year. I think I had it in a pot alongside my um, black-eyed Susans, which is properly in the ground. So I want to eventually pull it out of the pot, put it directly in the ground, and hopefully some of the seeds kind of found their way to the ground themselves. So yeah, I'm just every day checking to see what's popping up and coming back.
Can I ask a question? Can you hear
Sure.
me?
Yeah, sure.
I'm new to this game, so can I assume that all of these are native plants
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
and non-invasive, correct?
Well, native plants aren't generally considered invasive. There are some native plants that are a little more aggressive than others, but usually you don't consider a native plant invasive.
Okay, good. Do you have a particular
No.
plant app that you use to identify? Because a minute ago, last weekend, I spent the weekend with other gardeners pulling out, let me think of it now. It's very invasive, garlic mustard. And then I think was it the ginger that you showed? Looked very similar. So any guidelines there?
Ginger looking similar to garlic mustard?
I think so,
I don't think
yes.
I've never seen any resemblance between ginger and garlic mustard.
The shape of whatever I'm trying to find of yours. Wait a minute, I think I made a comment here, so let me back up.
They're both the leaves are a little heart-shaped.
Horseshoe shaped, yeah.
Well, garlic mustard has white flowers and generally gets taller, while wild mustard has a larger flower, hairy stems, and stays low to the ground. And the flower is kind of a maroon color and it's underneath the leaves.
But if we're trying to remove garlic mustard now, you know, everything's small. So I'm assuming that
Ginger leaves are going to be a lot bigger, and they don't, in my opinion, they don't look anything like garlic mustard.
okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you. Are you on the way down the expressway going towards Columbus? Is that where you're located?
We're about halfway between Mansfield and Columbus, not
Off
too
of-
far off one.
Off
Of
of
71.
71. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Someone asked in the chat, does heartleaf golden Alexander like full sun?
I have tried it in full sun, and it has survived, but I won't say it did it happily. It doesn't look like it's as happy as it could be. And it's getting where I have it now. It's in probably, it gets afternoon sun, but it's in morning shade. But afternoon sun is usually a lot harsher. So I thought that was an adequate trial, at least to see how it could handle it.
Does anybody else have any questions for Gail? Or comments or anything? I know we had a few people singing your nursery's praises in the chat as well.
It's wonderful. I'm glad people like us.
Okay. Oh, hold on. There's one more new. All right. Thank you so much, Gail. Feel free if you would like to stay on for the rest of the meeting and hang out with us, or you are free to log off and enjoy the rest of your evening. Oh, wait, Susie's asking, when do you open? I think you mentioned Friday earlier.
Yes, we open Friday. This is our first year for being open on Fridays, and we're open from 10 to 5. And we'll be open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Wonderful. Well, good luck
And then-
with your
Yeah,
opening,
as a matter of fact,
opening weekend.
yeah, I have to jump off of here and write a whole bunch of plant labels.
Get to it.
All right.
Thank you so much, Gail.
Y'all have a good evening.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to reshare. Ooh, share. Okay, there we go. All right. Let me see. Just want to keep an eye on the chat also. Okay. All right. So since our last meeting that we had in March, we have 8 new members. I feel like I didn't see any names on the call that are on here. So I won't get to embarrass anybody, unfortunately. But thank you to these 8 people for becoming members of our chapter. Some exciting news. The Wild Ones Greater Cleveland chapter is now an official Wild Backyards partner with Summit Metro Parks. If you are unfamiliar with the Wild Backyards program, I know we cover a lot of area around Northeast Ohio, so you might not be in Summit County and might not follow Summit Metro Parks as closely as others. But it's a really great initiative and program that the Metro Parks is doing to basically help people rewild their yards. So they have, similar to our native habitat corridor, they have a wild backyard program that you can be a part of as a resident. And you know, you get this fun sheet that you could check all these fun things off. And if you have a rain barrel and how many, you know, native species you have in your yard. It's just their way of helping, you know, their county that they serve, helping to implement native landscapes. So we are now official partner listed here along with Hi Ho Brewing, which is also in Summit County. They have great beer. They are in Cuyahoga Falls, right on the Cuyahoga River, if you've never been. Meadow City Nursery, who we talk about a lot. Julie Slater was one of our original leadership members and helped us kick off our chapter. Also, they have Powell's Native Wildflowers, which is another native nursery in North Canton. Summit Soil and Water Conservation District, and our chapter. So it's very exciting. As of right now, and speaking of our native habitat corridor, we have 166 gardens officially on our corridor. So it's very exciting. You know, even through winter, we would see a few gardens trickle in. So, you know, it's great to see. It's been picking up a little bit, I feel, but I'm sure it'll pick up more this summer once everybody is, you know, garden forward. So that's great. If you're not familiar or not on the map yet, this is our way to make pollinators, native plants more accessible to our pollinator friends. So thinking that, you know, your one garden is connected in a corridor with other native gardens throughout your neighborhood for our pollinator friends. You can see this map shows everybody who is, this might not be exactly up to date, but it is quite recent. I think I grabbed it in March. So, you know, the map is ever changing. But on here, we have public gardens, residential gardens, also our lovely native plant nurseries, so you can find them easily. And this is a QR code to get your garden on the map. It is free. We don't really have too many parameters. Our parameters are have a native plant, have some native plants. And you can join. We also have a lovely garden sign that you can put up to encourage conversation with your neighbors. We do sell those on our website, and we'll also be selling them at any events that we have, tabling events. So be on the lookout for those. We do have some volunteer opportunities, some reoccurring roles, one being an assistant volunteer coordinator. If you're really good at organizing and you really like, you know, being a part of this community of volunteers, the need is to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row for different events, and especially ones that will have volunteers, like, for example, the tabling or events that we go to, or for example, the community garden planting projects that we do that Antonia is going to talk about in a little bit. You know, just kind of making sure that everything's buttoned up and everybody knows where they're supposed to be. We also have a newsletter chair in case anybody's interested in that. So that helps, if you are a member, you've probably seen our newsletter that comes out at the beginning of the month, each month. So you would help create this newsletter to send out each month. And by no means are you putting this together on your own. Leadership is feeding you the content that will be within the newsletter. It's more just this person would be crafting it within MailChimp, which is the platform that we use, and partnering with, you know, our leadership team to make sure that they have everything they need for the newsletter. So if you're interested in either of those, email us and let us know. We would love to have you. Some one-off volunteering. This is the information tabling that I was talking about. We've had a few already. So our Earth Day, April extravaganza has kicked off. So our next one is the 23rd, where we will be at Lorain County Community College for their Earth Day celebration, which is also the same day. The universities must be on the same wavelength at Kent State for their Earth Fest. And then we have quite a few on the 26th. Earth Fest in Stowe, which is in Summit County. Medina County Parks Earth Day Fest in Seville. There's Party for the Planet at the Akron Zoo. That does not, if you plan on attending just as not a volunteer, but if you want to go to any of these very exciting events, I will have you know that the Akron Zoo event, you still have to pay admission to be an attendee at that one. But if you volunteer with us, you don't have to pay admission. And then also on Saturday, the 26th, the Vermilion River Watershed Open House in Vermilion. So this is a QR code that will link you to our sign-up sheets for volunteering, which I should probably have those links too available. Let's see if I can quickly get to it. We'll see. Maybe. I'll post it at the end. How about that? All right, May information tables. So a lot of our May information tables are plant sales. It's happening. It's happening. Okay, so on Saturday, May 3rd, this is a whole day, and I should have brought up the image for this event. But the Twinsburg Native Habitat Association's workshop, they're going to have speakers throughout the day, and they have vendors and organizations like Wild Ones Greater Cleveland that's going to be there tabling as well. So it's a whole day of really exciting things. It is if you plan to spend the whole day, it's bring a packed lunch and hang out with everybody. All right, it looks like, thank you, Cassie, is posting the volunteer sign up in the chat if you would like. And then Saturday, May 10th, Cleveland Metro Parks are having their native plant sales. It's going to be at each of their 5 nature centers. The Canalway Center in Cuyahoga Heights, North Chagrin Nature Center in Mayfield Village, Rocky River Nature Center, the Watershed Stewardship Center in Parma. I always struggle with that one. It's a mouthful. And the Brecksville Nature Center. So they have their plant lists listed, and they're ready to go to sell plants. And then the 17th is the Summit Metro Parks Native Plant Festival in Monroe Falls. They're going to have all the vendors of the native nurseries, and then also tabling of similar organizations like us, but they're also going to have food trucks. I think they're going to have 2 workshops. They're going to have, I don't know, I might have heard a rumor about a DJ, but I'm not really sure. I could be making that up, so don't quote me on that. But it was a lovely day last year for that. It's a whole day. And also the Lorain County Metro Park Spring Green Market is also the 17th. And that is, oh, that doesn't have a city on it. Ray, do you know what city that Spring Green Market is in? I forget if
Yes,
it's
that's in Avon.
Avon. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Avon.
Okay.
So Miller Nature Preserve, Lorain County Metro Parks.
Wonderful. Thank you. I don't know how that
Yeah,
missed.
there's that Center Road Avon.
Oh, I was
says right
reading
there.
that as part of the as part of the street name.
Commas are important.
Commas are important. All right, I'll have to fix that one. Okay. And then the next day on Sunday the 18th is Keep Euclid Beautiful's native plant sale up in Euclid. And then on the 31st, Friends of Heights Park native plant sale as well in Cleveland Heights. So we're going to be at all of those. If any of those pique your interest and you just want to go, feel free. If you want to hang out with us at our table and talk about native plants with everyone, you can do that too.
Janice, can I ask a
Yes.
question?
Of course.
Go back to your screen.
Yeah.
Right there. I see plant sale for 3 that I can see. What about Saturday, the May 3rd? Twinsburg Native Habitat. Are there plants being sold then, or you don't know?
I believe that there are some of the vendors there are nurseries, so I would assume that they
Okay.
would be
Yes, Janice,
selling.
there's going to be, I think, 5 or 6 different nurseries setting up shop there.
Thank you
I'll
so
try
much.
and grab that or Cassie, if you have that, either the image of what that event is or the website for the Twinsburg Native Habitat Association to throw in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good question. All right, so in prep for the summer, we are looking for people who would like to host a garden tour at their house or property or a garden that you maintain. Obviously native. This is a QR code to a form to fill out if you would like to host a tour. These won't be, they'll probably be July. It seems to be the popular month for full bloom gardens. So that's probably when they'll be. So we're going to start planning here probably after this onslaught of Earth Day tabling events. And we'll get started on scheduling tours and getting all that information out. So if you're interested, you know, one of the things that we like to tell everyone is you don't have to have a 10-year established garden to be on our garden tour. We love to see gardens in all forms. We want to see the gardens in progress. We want to see, you know, the ones that are just starting out. We want to see everybody's. You know, we think it's good for everyone to be able to see those in progress gardens because that way, if your yard looks similar, you know you're not alone. And, you know, it helps kind of the creative process of like, oh, what if I did this? Or what if they did that? And it's just, I love seeing gardens in every form. So if you'd like to share with us, that would be great. And then also if you have helped organize garden tours before, or if you haven't, but you have an interest in it, we're putting together our planning committee to put these tours together. So again, we're going to get started probably mid-May, late May, in putting these tours together. So if you're interested in helping us out to do that, we have a form for that too, or you can always just email us and let us know. All right, I'm going to run through our recent events that we've had. Cassie did a wonderful job at talking to the Garden Club of Kent to introduce native plants to them. And she also was there with Kat Miller from the Xerces Society who talked about pollinators. So it was this great combination of or wealth of knowledge of native plants and their pollinators. We had a cozy game night with some seed packing with Medina County Parks District back at the end of March. And then we started tabling. The first one we did is the Westlake Rain and Garden Show. I think that was a good success. It was inside, which was good for our variable weather here in April in Northeast Ohio. And then also the Lake Erie Nature and Science Center, where we had one of our winter sewing workshops, Keystone workshops this winter. We tabled at their Family Earth Day event. I heard there were lots of kids at that one, so they played a lot of games. So we also have our spring ephemeral hikes that we've had two. Well, actually, we've had three so far. One was today, but we did our first one with Portage Parks District this past Saturday. It was a little chilly, but we definitely saw a few. These are the bloodroot that are curled up. It was a good time. It was definitely chilly, but it was nice to get out and walk and see some flowers. And then on Sunday, Shelley, who I believe is on the call with Medina County Parks District, gave us a little tour of one of her parks, Hubbard Valley, and showed us some of their plants. I believe the plant in the middle is that my mind just went blank.
It's blanking on me because I remember Shelley talking about this one.
Is that the cut leaf toothwort?
But
There we go. Yeah, cut leaf
is it?
toothwort. All
Okay,
right, it's confirmed.
perfect.
So you guys had a little bit warmer weather than we did on Saturday.
Yeah, it was actually it looked like it was gonna rain, but the rain stayed at bay and it was, I think, in the 50s. It was nice.
That's good. Yeah, I think we had 40.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yep, that's it. All right. And then in honor of Arbor Day, which is this last week in April, I believe it's the actual date is the 25th, which is Friday. We are doing a virtual presentation. One of the biologists from the Summit Metro Parks is giving it, Christopher Cheney. And he's going to be talking about For the Love of Trees, all about native trees in our region. There is registration required for this one. I believe I actually thought ahead and got that link.
I already put in.
Maybe.
Cassie put the link in the
Oh, she did? Okay. Thanks, everybody. Oh, yeah, I did actually prepare for that one and had the link ready, but obviously I'm still missing. Okay. And then we did have our hike in Lorain County with Lorain County Parks today. It was during the day. Ray went. Thumbs up, Ray?
We had one couple show up, so there were four of us.
Okay.
The naturalist at the park, me, and two of my friends.
Okay.
It was windy. It was cold. We had a great time. Once we were in the woods, the wind wasn't a factor. A lot of the flowers were closed because you need a little warmth and sunshine to get them to do. But we saw probably 30, 35 different species of wildflower. This is a beautiful park.
Wow.
This is one of the best spring ephemeral hikes that you could take. It's about a 1 mile loop. I want to get back there this weekend and really see it in full glory with better temperatures.
That's amazing. Cassie, can you throw the information for where that hike was in the chat as well?
Yeah, Bacon Woods of the Vermilion River Reservation. Yeah, I've been going there for 50 years. It's great.
Nice. Lovely. So then we have two more. We have one at Cleveland Metro Parks at their North Chagrin Nature Center is going to be where we meet. And then will be a short hike there at 1 p.m. And then Summit Metro Parks, sorry, that's April 19th. And then April 27th is Summit Metro Parks in the Sand Run Metro Park, the Wadsworth area. So both of those left to go. Obviously, as mentioned, as it gets a little bit warmer, we'll probably see more in bloom. It just, when we schedule these, you never know what the weather's going to be like in Northeast Ohio. So the other thing I want to mention is that we started kind of this new initiative with these hikes and joined iNaturalist to do kind of a bio blitz for spring ephemeral hikes. If anyone is familiar with iNaturalist, you can join our project, and then any picture that you take in the app, it will, within the certain parameters that we set in the background, it will add them to the project. If it's just a good way, I think, to show everybody what we saw in our varying parks. It's a good way to document and inventory what we saw. So if you haven't joined yet, it would be something fun to do for these last two hikes if you're interested. Some exciting news. We have a new event workshop that we're planning that's going to be Saturday, May 31st. This is going to be a softwood propagation native shrub workshop. One of our Summit County Regional Coordinator, Kim, has a lovely native garden at home, and she has taken cuttings of her own plant material and has propagated them for a while. So she wants to share that with all of us. So we will have registration open. We're going to open it up to about 20 people, much like a winter sowing workshop. We don't want to have too many people, but that's going to be in Hudson at Hudson Springs Park. We have the pavilion there, so that should be really fun, and we'll let everybody know as soon as registration is available, which should be fairly soon. And then another exciting event is a social that we're going to have within Cuyahoga County. Unwind and Unvine, kind of just a social to get together with all of us, but also kind of talk about invasive removal. And I think one of the most hated invasives that homeowners of Northeast Ohio face is dealing with English ivy. So Diab, who's on the call, is actually going to be hosting this, and this was his idea to kind of incorporate the invasive tips and tricks for English ivy along with a social for to hold in Cuyahoga County. So we're still working.
My backyard too. I think I emailed you with that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So it'll be on the west side of Cleveland. We don't have a specific date picked yet, but again, we will let you know as soon as we do. And then we have our behind the scenes tour of Avonlea Gardens in Chardon. That is by registration as well. I'm sure Cassie will throw that link in the chat too. It's so nice to have helpers. All right, and then last but not least, and I'm sorry, Antonio, we can run a few minutes over. He is going to talk about his project that he's doing here as the community garden chair coordinator here with the chapter. So I'll let you take it over.
Thanks, Janice. Yeah, this is very exciting for me. This is my first little project I'm heading as community garden chair with Wild Ones Greater Cleveland. A little bit of background on this project. I've been kind of working with this parks organization, Friends of Hudson Parks, for the past couple months, And I've just got a couple like grant funded projects through them from my company, actually doing a bunch of like woodland native plantings and supplemental plantings in their marsh zone. But we found this one grant that they had for this Janet Cheeseman Memorial Garden, and I thought, oh, this would be just perfect. We could just spend all this grant money on plants and get a big volunteer push day with Friends of Hudson Parks and then Wild Ones as well. So we've got these 3 beds in Hudson Springs Park that are called the Janet Cheeseman Memorial Garden, and I can go into a little bit of background about that. And so this garden was originally installed by the Hudson Park Board to honor Janet Cheeseman, who was a woman who'd been a strong advocate of the parks and a member of the Hudson Park Board. She was a longtime gardener and a member of the Hudson Garden Club, which the Hudson Garden Club is a big supporter of the Friends of Hudson Parks and the Hudson Parks more broadly. And they give a lot of really generous grants to FOHP for conservation initiatives, and including this one. So we've come up with Sunday, May 18th as our planting day. And we've got over 200 plants to install from 16 different species. The total space is probably something like 600 or 700 square feet. And so, yeah, we're gonna do this kind of as a like what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be Wild Ones and Friends of Hudson Parks. Kind of working
A joint
together.
venture.
A joint venture. Yes. Thank you, Janice.
Oh, I was gonna say collaboration, but yeah, I
Yeah,
like joint
collaboration.
That works
Yes.
too.
All the synonyms were out of my head. But yes, so this is going to be happening at 10 o'clock. There's going to be registration on both the Friends of Hudson Parks website, and I believe that Wild Ones is going to have its own registration as well, and we'll just kind of combine those lists. And we're asking volunteers to just bring their own supplies. So that's gloves, planting tools, and lunch in case you'd like to stay a while. We plan on going until we're finished that day. So Hudson Springs Park, it's got a pretty large parking area, but it is a fairly popular park. So there is going to be an overflow lot off of Stowe Road. Wild Ones is going to have, or actually Friends of Hudson Park is going to have waiver documents that we just ask everyone who's volunteering to sign. But yeah, I can go over some of the plants that I've purchased for this. There's some really, really cool ones. We've got hairy wood mint, rattlesnake master, hoary mountain mint, yellow coneflower, Ohio spiderwort, giant ironweed, golden alexanders, butterfly milkweed, lanceleaf coreopsis, purple prairie clover, stiff goldenrod, New England aster, sky blue aster, and then some of the grasses like Cytodes grama, purple lovegrass, and little blue stem. So we're trying to not so much kind of come up with make this like a designed formal bed space, but it's going to be more of like a naturalized garden. The goal for these spaces ultimately is to make them kind of low maintenance and blend in as this like woodland edge to the woodland that they kind of back up against. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. I hope we can get a nice group out there. Like I said, we've got at least 200 plants. That's not including others that we're going to be hopefully getting some donations from. But yeah, so it should go a couple hours, and it sounds like a great thing for especially for folks who are on the south side there. But I don't know if I forgot anything. Let me know, Janice.
No,
Anybody
it's
have any
great.
questions?
Does anybody know if they want to come already? I'll be there.
I need to, let me see. I have to check my work schedule because I have such a unique night work schedule, but this is definitely one I want to attend. So I'm putting it on my like list of events I want to check, pending if I work or not.
Pencil it in,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely up my alley. And where's this again? Janice
This
and
is
Antonio, I think
in
oh,
Hudson,
Hudson Springs Park.
Hudson Springs Park, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
Perfect.
looking at the photos now, and I'm realizing I forgot to mention a fun part. If some people get some catharsis out of this, I know I do. Speaking of invasive removal, there are some, let's say, unwanted vegetation that currently exists in these beds, like some miscanthus that we will have the pleasure of being able to remove before planting in our natives. So if that gets you
Are you
going,
bringing like the
Oh
the
yes.
heavy tools to
Yeah,
remove
a
it?
mattock. Yeah.
Yes,
might have
thank you.
to.
I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, the mattock.
The
Oh my
backhoe.
word.
Yeah.
He
So
were to break our
Antonio,
backs for that one.
Antonio, I will send you a list of plants that I'm growing here at home that
Ooh.
I'm willing to share with your project.
That would be awesome. Yeah, thank you, Ray.
So if there's something I can donate from the inventory I've got, yeah, you can let me know if I've got something you want.
Thank you. Yeah, would love that.
Okay.
And just to let everybody know too, this is a great park. So there's a playground there, there's a full loop around, there's a lake that you can fish in. There's also disc golf. So if you're an avid disc golfer and want to plant some plants and then go throw a disc afterwards, feel free. But it's a really nice spot, and we're really excited that Antonio brought this up for us. To help coordinate some volunteer efforts. So we're
Apparently,
very
there are some
excited.
really incredible ephemerals coming up there right now. I haven't been in a couple weeks, but if there will probably still be some action happening in May. But
Yeah.
if you want to go there before, it seems like it's supposed to be a really cool place
Well,
for ephemerals.
actually, Antonio, if it's at 10 a.m., and I work in Independence, I could probably make that. And then, because I work at 6 p.m., so even if I work or not, I should definitely be able to go. Because I'm looking at Google Maps, and I didn't realize how close it was to my office.
Yeah, from Independence, it's not that far.
Mhm.
So
Okay, then I more than likely can definitely attend for sure. I'll let you know,
Awesome.
like a definite yay, nay. Probably more so a yay.
yeah, we'll have official registration so that everybody can, get lined up with waivers and everything. So
Oh
it
yeah,
should
and
be
Diane
great.
commented she'll be there too, so she's most likely to attend rather. That's good too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Does anybody have any questions for Antonio? Thanks. Awesome. Okay. So we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. It's gonna be a good late spring, early summer season for us, I think. And just, for closing, if you're not a member yet, please join us if you're interested. All of membership helps us make all of our events and workshops and presentations open and free to the public. So that way everyone is able to attend things like this. And if you are on social media, if you're on Facebook or Instagram or even LinkedIn, we're on LinkedIn. Follow us, share our content with your plant loving friends. And if you do become a member, we're trying to reach that 200 mark for members. So we're close. We're in the 190s. We seem to be at, give and take a little bit, but it would be great to celebrate that milestone, in the coming months. So thank you everyone for coming tonight. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Antonio. Happy April, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you at one of our tabling events or just around town at Native Nursery. And thanks everybody and happy spring.